GM, everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today is Tuesday, the 28th of January, and what a difference a day makes in Bitcoin world. Obviously, yesterday when we did the stream, we were down around 98, $99,000. I did mention this was an area of interest to look to take positions. I took a long off this area here, which was around between 98, around 98,500 and 99,000. We did then see buying come into the market and push us higher, and we've closed yesterday's candle with this massive wick here, which obviously indicates buying interest coming into the market. Bears could not keep us under $100,000, and it's been really encouraging to see buyers now step in on what is decent volume, fairly decent volume, turning us around, and we are back now above 102,000, 102,500 is obviously a important level here that I've had as a previous level of resistance. Looking to try and flip that to support. So potentially Bitcoin might run into a little bit of resistance here. Let's see what happens when the US markets open up and if we can get a move higher. I'm actually thinking that we might actually see a push a little bit higher over the next day, potentially going into FOMC. We then may see us come back down again. And I'm really expecting over the next 24 hours that we will probably be sat around the current price levels. I would say somewhere between 101 and 100 and call it 105,000. I think we'll probably be around 102, 103. Let's see what happens. I think in the short term, what is likely to happen is that market makers will target the liquidity just above price here. So obviously that is coming all the way up to around about 105,000. That is why I think we could make this move over the course of today, and then potentially we just consolidate once that liquidity has been wiped out, and we wait for FOMC tomorrow evening if you're in Europe, obviously tomorrow afternoon if you are in America. And if we just sort of zoom out a little bit just to the 2 week chart, just to see where our liquidity lies here, because obviously we have trying to be keep a tab on like the longer term liquidity. We can see we have liquidity really above 107. So a move up here, I think, would run us lightly up to that 110,000 level that I have been expecting to happen at some point over the next couple of weeks. Obviously, a move down, we could run under sort of 95,000, maybe into the low 90,000. So that risk is still not off the table. And I think it's really a case here of we're right in the middle of these two, sort of extremes in terms of the low end of this range and the high end of this range. I think now, like I say, we might get this push up through this liquidity up to around about 105,000, and then potentially we'll be looking for some direction after tomorrow's FOMC to tell us which way are we going to go. Are we going to grab this first and then look to bounce from there, or are we just going to keep on sort of running higher? So it's going to be a big 48 hours. Obviously, at the time that I do tomorrow's stream, we'll probably still be waiting for FOMC to take place. If I just look at a couple of our other indicators that we usually like to look at as well, we've got the moon phases here. So I think we can see that we got a bearish moon or a new moon fast coming up very, very soon. I'm just curious to see how many days into the cycle we are. So it's around about 2 weeks, about 14 bars. So from this one here, my trading view wants to work. Painful sometimes. This one here, where does 14 days put us to? 14 days actually puts us to yesterday. So I was under the impression that a new moon had printed yesterday. Maybe it hasn't. Maybe it is actually today. Yeah, I mean, this is looking a little bit more extended than usual, or maybe the indicator is just behaving as slow as the rest of my trading view is today. But anyways, we've got that potentially to contend with, as we've sort of talked about already on the channel. Potentially, sort of when we get these full moons, that can usually put lows into price. We saw it happen here. We saw us get a bit of a move off this full moon. However, it was subsequently then faded. We saw a nice move off this full moon. So really the bare moons, what we've seen is, I mean, this didn't work out at all. We actually went higher, and this one did not work out at all. We actually went higher too. So potentially, the bare moons, with us being bullish, are starting to falter and not quite working out. Obviously, we kind of sold into this moon. This one, we did see a little bit of downside before going higher. So potentially, we've got a bit of consolidation and some chop over the next few days, and we'll see what FOMC brings us. I am optimistic that Jerome Powell will be at least a bit more dovish, or should I say, a bit less hawkish than he was at the last FOMC meeting. Obviously, President Trump has talked about wanting to weaken the dollar. He's been very loud and clear about wanting interest rates lower as well. So we'll see if that impacts anything in terms of the language that Jerome Powell comes out with tomorrow. So that's really Bitcoin from here. Like I say, I'm expecting consolidation. And like I've just said, breaks above, really, if we get above 105,000 and start closing above 105 and a half, call it sort of 106, then closes above this level here, this 106.1, I'm actually going to put that on as a horizontal, will be what I really want to see to get more bullish on this market. So we've got another line that we've put on. I'm going to get rid of this one because it is not as relevant anymore. And yeah, let's see where Bitcoin goes over the next couple of days. If we look at Ethereum, then we can see that Ethereum, judging by the price here, $3,182 is just literally going sideways and not up to a whole lot. So, gee, trading for you is super, super slow for me today. So, yeah, here we can see obviously a turnaround in Ethereum yesterday also. So coming down to that 3,000 level, which is a big, big level, but closing above this support here, closing above obviously the 200-day moving average, the horizontal support, and the diagonal trend line as well. So Ethereum continuing to consolidate, and similar to Bitcoin, I am expecting potentially one more wick lower. However, one more flush lower. Obviously, if Bitcoin flushes lower, potentially we could come down to the next area of interest, which would be around about 2,800 to 2,850. But like we've said, if Bitcoin wants to push higher here, then I'd be looking for a breakout of this descending trend line on Ethereum, really to indicate that we're going to challenge around 4,000 again in the not too distant future. Obviously, I still do think this will happen over the next couple of months. It's just whether we go lower first, stop out some more traders, catch some more liquidity, and then run higher, or whether we do it sooner, i.e., over the next week. So more will be revealed in a couple of days' time. And Solana as well. Solana bouncing two, so coming down and testing the 220 area and starting to see a nice bounce coinciding with its 20-day moving average as well. Obviously, Solana back above all of its moving averages. They're all in sort of order with the 20, the 50, the 100, the 200. This is exactly what you want to see at the start of a trending move and finding support off the 20. So I think Solana looks really good here and should start to run shortly as well. Pepe down a bit today. So some of these memes still looking quite heavy, but we are coming into major, major support. So I identified this 1274 area as being a major sort of pivot in the market previously. So previously we struggled to get above this level and then dumped. And then when we broke it back on the upside, we really, really started to take off and rally aggressively. Of course, Pepe might want to come down a little bit lower towards this 1058 area, which I think would be, the next area of interest, an area that I would look to be going in really aggressively on Pepe if we did get that low. So that is the majors. Of course, we can just loop back on Bitcoin and take a look at our other chart where I was sharing this path. So we can see we come straight into this descending trend line that we'd broken out previously resistance, flipped now into support. So this is a strong bounce from an important area on Bitcoin. And like I say, potentially we come and we test this wick and we come down again to around 99, or we might just go sideways, a little pop up today to catch some liquidity, and then waiting for FOMC, which I would hope would either be a push higher or potentially one more week down and a push higher. I think that will really depend on Jerome Powell's language. But the thing is, he can't continue to just get progressively more and more and more hawkish. I mean, he's pretty much lowballed this year with his comments in December. So, if somebody is coming up to a meeting, and there's sort of, there's a sort of scale here from, hawkish on this side, dovish on this side. If he's over here, then how much further hawkish can he get before he starts to then go back to the center and move then onto the dovish side? I think we are in that situation right now, and potentially this is why the market is maybe not selling off as aggressively as it might have done. It seems to be holding up okay right now. Potentially the market is starting to, call the bluff of the Fed, so to speak, and is starting to look at the situation and saying, well, they can't hike rates. I mean, we now in a sort of rate sort of drop reduction cycle. So inflation isn't spiraling out of control enough to really justify that. Obviously, the last CPI and PPI numbers did come in below expectations, albeit higher. So based on those expectations, if we were saying that we're only going to do one rate cut or no rate cuts this year, it's unlikely, if inflation's coming in below expectations, that they're then going to be able to come out and say, actually, we need to change policy and deliver more rate cuts. So it looks like rates are going to be unchanged. It's whether, obviously, the Trump effect and him saying he wants rates lower, whether this is going to result in Jerome Powell at least talking more dovishly and entertaining the possibility of rates. Without a doubt, he will be asked questions from reporters. What do you make of Trump's comments about lowering rates? And it's going to be very interesting to see his response to that. If he turns around and says, well, if we see inflation start to come down, lowering rates will be a possibility, will be an option, will be on the table later this year, maybe more than one rate cut, then I think that will really, really send the markets higher. And of course, we know Trump is taking action to lower inflation directly. He is talking to OPEC about increasing the supply of oil to bring down the prices of oil. He's talking about, more energy production locally in the USA. So talking about, more drilling. So let's see if these actions will have the desired effect. If inflation does start to tick down, then you can expect that lower rates will be on the table again. And this is what I've said. This is what I've said since the December meeting, that, potentially this conversation does come back around towards the end of the first quarter. And we are talking about rate cuts again for 2025, which is going to be massively bullish for risk assets, stocks, for crypto. It's going to put more pressure on the dollar to come down. So I think that could be the way things play out. But obviously, this is all just, guessing for now. But that may be what the market is starting to see. Obviously, taking a quick look at the dollar, then dollar on a bit of a bounce today. So we would expect this would put crypto and stocks under a little bit of pressure, but so far so good. Crypto and the stock markets are holding up okay. So bit of a dollar bounce. Moving on to the stock market then. So the S&P, obviously big turnaround yesterday above its descending trend line and getting a nice back test there. Obviously popping back above the moving averages. We just really need this 20-day to cross above the 50-day, which will happen if we hold prices around these levels or start to mark up any higher. and stocks are looking really, really strong here. Obviously, the Nasdaq a little bit weak currently on that trend line, which it did break out to the upside, wicked below it, currently holding at it. So let's see if we do sort of come down and retest this week, or if we start to push on higher again. Obviously, we do need to reclaim these moving averages, these shorter term ones, the 20 and the 50 that we've lost. So Nasdaq looking a little bit weaker. Looking at Bitcoin dominance as well, we've got a decent wick here. So that looks like potentially it could be the high for Bitcoin dominance. I think many of us in crypto that are heavily exposed to altcoins are sort of hoping to see this start to roll over and start to come down. I would have thought that we could start to come off here. Certainly, if the market does continue to go higher, i.e., the stock market, if we can recover with Bitcoin recovering, I do think Bitcoin dominance is set to come down. This is the year for alts, as we have been talking about. And obviously, I'll jump into some more alts probably on a separate video this week. But yes, this is kind of make or break in a way. Like if we do sort of take out this week, it's very hard to see Bitcoin dominance then not running into the 60 above 60% and potentially retesting this high. That would be getting above this 786. So potentially this is a turning area for Bitcoin dominance. Let's see how it plays out. I think the Fed could have a hand in determining what happens here. Obviously, if they talk about anything around quantitative easing or loosening the monetary policy, then that could potentially sort of play into that reversal. And tether dominance as well. So when I streamed yesterday, we were above this trend line. It looked like we were breaking out, and now we've come back below it. So that is reassuring to see for sure. And we really, really do not want to see this market, this tether dominance sort of flip bullish here. And as we can see, if we go down to the lows here, we can see we've come into the sort of 50% or above the 50% level of this range, and we've rejected it. So let's see if we can get some momentum here and get back below some of these important levels on tether dominance. And if we get the tether dominance breakdown, if we see a continued sort of breakdown of the dollar with the Fed talking about potential rate cuts later this year, stocks start to send, it's very, very hard to see Bitcoin not making a breakout to new all-time highs over the next couple of weeks, and altcoins starting to follow. So I remain bullish. Hopefully that has given you your dose of opium for today. Just finishing off on Bitcoin, like I say, we might come down a little bit lower today, but I'm not expecting any big moves ahead of FOMC. It's likely we could run a little bit higher towards 105,000, catch the liquidity there, and then really just go into a bit of a holding pattern, I think, until tomorrow evening. So, yes, let's see how things play out. Massive 48 hours. And certainly, even I think all traders, but even myself included, I'm just really now waiting for FOMC to get out of the way, and then I can start to determine, my positioning around that. And I think a lot of traders will be in a similar boat here. I think that is the next hurdle we just have to get through to then really, really give us confidence that we can start to position more heavily into this market. And look, I think traders, whether they're trading stocks, trading cryptos, whatever you're trading, I think the majority of smart traders here just want to get exposure to this market, because for me, it's the path is clear. Dollars are likely to come down over the next few months. Stocks are likely to go higher. Cryptocurrency is going to be a benefactor of a dropping dollar, a rising stock market. It's also likely to get some of that liquidity and go higher. So really, you just want to focus on positioning in for the best prices you can. I still believe dips are for buying. If we do get a sell-off tomorrow, I will be looking to take advantage of that and position in more heavily. Alternatively, if we do pop higher, I'll be looking to position in on the next dip. Like I say, don't chase, don't FOMO, keep a cool head. You got this. And I'm going to be with you here every step of the way, daily streams for the foreseeable future. Let's get it. Let's go. Okay. So I'm leaving it there. Have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you all on the next one. GM, GM, GM.